God is not a God that moves based on your feelings and tears. He's a God of principles, and He moves based on the application of what He has said in His Word. God only releases His blessing when we begin to please Him. You may be asking, what does it mean to please God? When pleasing God is being spoken of, we're not talking about earning His acceptance and earning His salvation. The blessing of God is a gift and comes to us freely, but the main missing locomotive engine in many lives is that they're not in the place and out of the alignment that's needed for God to release His blessing. It's very hard to miss God, but when many walk out of God's plan, God finds it difficult to land certain blessings on them. To please God means to satisfy Him and meet His standard. Many are living lives that are not conformed to God's ways, which put God in a tight spot to bless them. The word bless means to empower and lift. What the blessing of God can only do in your life can never be compared to all your labors combined. The blessing makes life and your environment begin to respond in a particular way. When God has released His blessing on you, no one can stop you, because now you're carrying the energies of God's hand on your life like Jacob. Men around you can see it because everything you touch must work. Laban said of Jacob in Genesis 30 verse 27, "And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found in the eyes, tarry. For I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake." When God blesses you and releases His hand on whatever you're doing, men can see and observe with their physical eye that you're blessed. Like Joseph, when God releases His blessing on your life, you'll be prosperous. I tell you, whatever right corner you think you're in now can be vaporized by the power of the blessing. Many only see the possibilities in the Word, but never step into the manifestation because they've not started pleasing God, the blesser. Are you pleasing God? Have you begun to please God? That's the only thing God asks of us. His hand is outstretched to bless us, but the blessing only rests on the one that pleases Him. When we look at the pattern of the blessed man in His Word, we see how they began to please God for the release of the blessing. Abraham is the very model of the blessing. Isaiah 51 verse 2, "Look unto Abraham your father, and unto Sarah that bare you. For I called him alone and blessed him and increased him." God released His blessing on Abraham, but it did not just happen without Abraham's consent. Abraham had a track record from the beginning to the finish to always please God. There is no way you can please God without faith in Him. That faith in Him leads you to corresponding actions which are called obedience of faith. When you begin to obey God, you can never go wrong. Hebrews 11 verse 6 says, "But without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him." As long as you believe God is the only personality and solution to any problems and challenges you're facing, you're pleasing Him by trusting God. It's the only person you need to live in this life. It's not hard to please God. God's not an idol. It's only idols that are hard to please. God has told us the truth and the precision to please Him, which is believing God is God in your life. How hard is that? Believe God is the one that will lift you from that place of begging you are right now to the place of ridership. Dare to believe God that He can heal your broken heart. Dare to believe God that He can overthrow all your situations and make you sit in the place of power and favor. Believe that God put a good impression of you in the heart of those who matter to speak peaceably about you in the place of authority. You can be a bearer of God's blessing. This is the first cut in pleasing God. It's impossible to please God without believing He is and the rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. God will reward you with blessings that no room contains if you dare to believe that He is your God, and He is a rewarder when you come to Him for anything. Secondly, another way to please Him to release the blessing in your family, finance, and business is what is recorded in Hebrews 13 verse 15 to 16. "By Him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God continually. That is, the fruit of our lips giving thanks to His name. But to do good and to communicate forget not, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased. We also please God by being generous and being good. This is where your lifestyle matters. You have to begin to please God in your actions. If you're not doing good and being generous, God can never take the initiative to bless you big time. What the blessing of God can do in your life, I tell you, you cannot imagine. When Abraham met Melchizedek, he did well to him by giving him the spoils of what he won in war. The priest who represents God released the blessing on him. And that is how Abraham moved from being a mercenary to being a king. Start pleasing God and you will begin to see the release of God's blessing in every area of your life. The blessing will make your name written in history. God will not force you. When you obey, for a moment it might seem as if nothing changed, but I'm telling you big time that something has changed in your life. God kept telling Terah, Abraham's father, preparing him for the release of the blessing. But he kept delaying until he died. And then God called Abraham. Like Abraham was tempted, you might now be in the time of where God has been speaking to you to take certain steps. But these forces have been hindering you from taking that giant step. You need to please God for the blessing. Look beyond the door you see now, what is inside the door. There are a lot of goodies on the other side, which are the blessings of God, enforcing circumstances in your favor. God spoke to Abraham in Genesis 12, verse 1-4. Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation. And I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in all thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Abraham pleased God by obeying his instruction, and God blessed in all things that he never needed anything. That is where God is about to take you into when you start to please Him. God will make you a wonder to many. Stop calculating. Just take that step. Break that ungodly relationship and delete the negative friends from your life. God is waiting for your decision. It might cost you something, but it pays. The requirement to walk with God is courage. Courage pleases God. God spoke to Joshua to take over from Moses, and he had nothing but leaps and steps out. You need to begin to please God, the one who is your maker, the one by which you live. Where God is about to take you in destiny is the place of pleasing Him only. Begin to live your life pleasing to God in words and actions, because God needs to shape your life with His breath of blessing. There are things to do to walk in the blessing. It's not based on what you feel or have as an opinion, but on what God has said. You satisfy God by putting Him as your priority. Many want God to do things for them so they will consume their lust, and that is why God never released the blessing on them, because He knows it'll break them. Walk with God, live by His word, and be cultured by His word. Put Him as your first love in all things and see His blessings overflowing in your family, business, and all things.